All right. Here we go again. Another day. Another day. I got the cordless microphone sitting on this little tripod. Seems to be working pretty good. Now, what am I doing? I have got so many emails. Scrambled. All right, hold on a minute, you guys. I found a folder. I guess back in the day, I actually had months. I had folders in here for the month of March, April, May, June. And I guess I was putting all of the emails from that month in the folder, thinking I'm being Mr. Organized. And I guess I quickly slid away from that. I just started chucking them in a folder. But anyway, I was sitting there having coffee this morning, my first one, and messing around with my notes, and I went somewhere, and I seen a whole bunch of folders. One was named March, and I looked into it. So many emails. And there'd be so many marked as read, then there'd be a flurry of not read and then read. And I remember back then because they were coming in so fast and furious. It was absolutely amazing. You could never stay on top of them. So I'd read. And then I guess the next day I'd crack open emails and start reading. And the next day, and then some would get read, some would get passed over, some would get read. Anyway, here's a whole slew of frickin' emails. And I glanced through a couple of them to see if I recognized any. Didn't. But then I recognized one particular person who wrote in. Crazy, and I've mentioned that man here when talking about wolves, and I haven't read his email yet. Now, where did it go? I will get to it, because I marked them all. I marked 14 emails and put them in a folder for today. I don't know if I'll read them all or not, but if I don't read them today, I'll read them tomorrow. But this one native guy from Alberta wrote me. After meeting me at this advanced wolf trapping course we did a few years back, and I was explaining to you guys some of the crazy-ass things that wolves do, including instantly knowing, even though they're 60 miles away, instantly knowing there's a pack of the rival wolf pack crossed their border. And the second that collared pack did, and as soon as that rival pack did cross that line, the rival pack spun around instantly, 60 miles away, and started beelining it for that pack of intruding wolves. Anyway, and another thing, these guys that I know, these guys are full-on cowboys from Williams Lake. They are the absolute czars of predator catching. And they said flat out, if you have anything going on in your mind when you go out trapping wolves, if there's anything off in your head or something with your relationship, your job, you're depressed, anything, any troubles, if you're troubled between the ears, they said, don't go out. But they said, if you are not right between the ears, to not go out wolf trapping, because it'll throw everything off, and they'll know something's up. And they won't trust the area you're working in if you are not right between the ears. And if these guys said that, this is where I hold these men. If they say that, it's solid. And then this First Nations guy from Alberta piped up and said, yeah, it's true. I normally get 14, 16, 18 wolves a year, and I was messed up for whatever reasons he was the previous year, or a couple years ago, and he said he only got one. And he trapped just as much. Same way, same zones, but he was messed up between the ears. Anyway, I thought I'd share that real quickly to let you know why I'm interested in hearing from this guy. Because then I'm glancing through these emails I found this morning, and that guy emailed me. At the starting of the email said, hey, I just met you at the wolf trapping course. I'm like, what? And he goes, I'm the native guy from Alberta. And then I stopped reading. So hopefully I'll share that today. So I was excited to see that, and that confirmed for me, nope, I didn't read any of these. I feel bad I didn't get his email right away, but at the time, I was getting 500 a day. And around there every single day, right? Now, let me see if maybe I can find it. Because I just marked them as 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way through. Okay, I found it. I'm going to start off with his email, all right? Now, so I have to start marking him as red again. Now listen to this. Haven't a clue what it's about, but I know who it is. It's titled Experience. Hi, Steve. I took a wolf course with you this past summer with the Lays. I was the only guy from Alberta, and I wish my son had showed me your channel before I'd met you. Wow. As a trapper, I've spent a lot of time in remote places in southern Alberta. I've had some wild experiences with sounds, whoops, and more so, very loud screams over the last 15 years. I've never seen one or any tracks, and I can pick tracks out very well at speed in my snowmobile. Oh man, trappers do not miss anything. Nothing. They don't miss anything. But I've had very close encounters with sounds. For years, I would rational the sounds to crows or ravens as I heard some crazy sounds from those birds. All the sounds I thought they were ravens were whoop, whoop sounds. And in my head, I just rationalized they were birds at a bait pile because that's where I was first hearing them. Then I heard my first scream, and I was in shock. I'd never heard something so loud and close. I rationalized it to a mountain lion because there's a very healthy population in this area. The rest of the day was spent kind of uneasy about being there. But I was doing a job and finished the day. I made a big grid pattern with my snowmobile that went around the area that the scream came from because I wanted to know what it was. And there was no big cat tracks. Really not many tracks at all. It was a few years past and I heard whoops a few times. Then I had my real eye-opening experience about 3 years ago. I was setting wolf traps by myself off an old logging road under a huge spruce tree, and something screamed at me so loud I froze, not knowing what to do but look into the bush around me. I've dealt with animals all my life and came to the conclusion if it wanted to harm me, it already would have, whatever it was. I finished setting and bedding that trap, and I'd planned to place 2 more, and I continued on. As I was just finished, the second trap, the most body-shaking scream I've ever heard went again, and it was really close. I pretended not to react a whole bunch, but kept a real close eye on where the noise came from for a few minutes. I wanted to know what the hell made this noise, and I walked to where the sound came from to find a track. Tracks tell everything to a trapper. There was nothing I could find, but I could tell there was still something fairly close. I was really uneasy, but decided to get the third trap in the ground, and when I started to pound the anchor in, a third scream came, and it felt as though it was right beside me. It really shook me to the point I couldn't deal with it anymore, and I got out of there. No doubt. I never have said anything to anyone until my son showed me your channel and started to listen to encounters. I can't say exactly what made the screams, but it was as loud as an air horn from a big truck. And I was in a really remote area, and again, I did a grid to find tracks and never came up with anything. Thanks, Steve. Holy shit, there you go. Rod Graham. Rod, apologize, man. I didn't get your email right away. If your son's here, let him know, all right? Or if you're still here. Yeah, I totally remember you at the trapping course. And that's crazy. I'm glad you came forward. I guess that's a few years ago now. Seems like frickin' yesterday. And I can guarantee you there's going to be a handful of people listening to you that are going to go, it was upset with you with trapping. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. If anything, if some of these forest people are here somewhat full-time, and they do, obviously they do eat a lot of the same table fare that we eat, that we harvest from the woods, they'll guarantee you they would be encouraging the predator control. Guaranteed. And furthermore, when I was trapping a lot every winter, specifically wolves, I heard the knocks above me when I was setting traps. Nobody screamed at me. Nobody chased me away. And another time when I was wolf trapping was when that arrow was sticking out of the snow straight up and down, my arrow. on top of 5 feet of snow without any tracks, and I lost that arrow way down the bottom of the mountain in the bottom of the valley that earlier spring. So whoever's doing that, they weren't pissed off at me at all, because I pulled, I don't know how many wolves I pulled out of that general area right there. Over 60 anyways, wolves I pulled out of that zone over the years. And these occurrences went on and go around all around there all the time. Haven't slowed up a bit. And they never attempted to mess with my gear, chase me out of there, stop me, prevent me, or scream at me while I was trapping. So, and we all know that many people doing various activities get that scream at them that shakes their body louder than an air horn. And I think this is the first time we've heard of a man that was trapping at the time he got screamed at. I'm just saying, don't go thinking they're there to be the guardians of the wolves. They're not. Appreciate you, man. I hope you and your son are still here. I think, did you leave your number? No. Okay. Gotcha. See? I eventually get you. I get you read. Doesn't matter who or when it comes in and where it goes, but I eventually find them. Now, next. Bigfoot 10 feet from me. I'm wondering if you could tell my story. Thank you for being non-judgmental. Hi, I watch your program all the time. I really like your program, and I wanted to tell you what happened to me in regards to Bigfoot back somewhere in, I think it was 2012, something like that, around November. I was helping a friend of mine put up a fence for a horse I gave her. We were putting the posts in. We kept hearing down the steep ravine some stomping around branches breaking, and her kids would say, "Hey, looks like there's something black down there." I would say probably deer, squirrels, something, like that. We got all the fence done, and we started to put the gate up before we could lead her horse out of this little stall we had. And we decided to go to town. And her twin boys are about 12 years old, and so when we came back, we're pulling down the driveway, and she's got woods all around a big, deep ravine down behind the fenced-in area. Okay, punctuation's off, but no big deal. I start to get out of my vehicle, and I've seen the boys are standing on the porch, and all of a sudden we hear this big, deep, screaming sound like it was kind of high up in the air. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I said, "Man, I'm going to run down there and scare these cats out of the tree. Sounds like they're killing each other, or going to kill each other." And so I took off running, and thank the Lord there was a fence, and it stopped me in my tracks, because right on the other side of the fence, I would have ran right into that Bigfoot. I stopped, and he was still in a scream. And he had his back towards me, and his head was up in the air screaming. And I was hanging onto that fence in shock, just looking right at him. He was reddish brown, kinky curly hair. That's how close I was to it. It was massively built. His arms were long, and when he came out of that scream, he didn't know I was there. He came out of that scream, and the twin boys running down behind me and I think he heard... He came off that scream, and the twin boys was running down behind me, and I think he heard them running, and I'm still standing there in shock, and he heard them. He pushed the big trees apart with his arms to get away from us, and he took like maybe 4 big, huge, massive steps and jumped down this ravine, and the boys were saying, "Let's go after him, let's go after him." I looked at them in shock, and I said, "Not me. You can." And that's the first time I've seen one. I have pictures of a baby in a tree. I've seen several different colored ones and heard them talking, and they talk a different language. And one told me that they are tribes, and one was in a tribe called the Sasquatch tribe, Sachaqua tribe. Did he tell you how to spell it? If you want to hear a few more, contact me at or email me back. Thank you and have a good day. Blessed. There you go. Huh. Sasquatch. Sachaqua tribe. I better mark this as looked into, and I wonder if you are still here. You guarantee you there's a lot of people who want to hear more from you and see that photograph. Guaranteed. Well, that's interesting. That note's going to go on a shelf in the back of my head when it comes to screams and their actions, right? Because as a hunter, especially a bow hunter, and I know a lot of you are out here because I believe we did a poll a few months back, and over 75% of you watching this channel are hunters or fishermen. Anyway, and we all know that we know when we can move. Do you know what I mean? When it comes to animal habits, as we're watching them, stalking them, what they're doing, what they might be, an elk bugling, whatever, deer rubbing his antlers, feeding. We know that by the body language and what they are doing when it's safe for us to move without being detected. So now we know. If you're getting screamed at, allegedly, maybe the forest person doing the screaming is oblivious to what you are doing while it's screaming. Handy item, maybe. Handy item for me to take note of. And possibly a lot of you, especially people that have been screamed at before and felt your body shake. Next. Hey Steve, part 2, answers to your questions. Oh, that's unfortunate. Not unfortunate. I mean, I'm reading it, but too bad we didn't have part 1 right away. Beforehand. Greetings, Steve. This is Catherine again. My husband and I listened to you read my story last night. Thank you. I love to listen to you read. You outsurpass all the others with no condescension. You asked me some questions about my story, so let's see if I can answer them, and perhaps share another story. This could be lengthy. If so, I'll leave it to your discretion to read in full or not. Additionally, I will try to edit for grammar. My experience is not professional, and I'll never try to sound as if I'm all-knowing, but my experience is face to face and lasted about 3 years or so, and I'm now 67, soon to be 68 in May. I've always been a logical realist. Wow, there's quite the opener. So here we go. The Ocala National Forest is a beautiful, lush area, and we lived on 69 acres, of which the back of the property bordered the Ocklawaha River. Ocklawaha River. Ocklawaha River. I apologize for this misspelling. It's on my original email to you. This river was full of many kinds of life forms, from gators to frogs and many types of fish. Plenty for the Bigfoot to eat, plus the deer that populated the area, which is why I think they never bothered my chickens or other pets. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in the forest, and at least 2 or 4 evenings a week with Bigfoot as my company. They appeared to be a family or an extended family. There was the, quote, big guy, end quote, as I called him, and he was at least 8 feet with various shades of brown hair. Darker brown down the middle of his back, long in places, not so long in others. Almost always clean looking except pieces of leaves hanging off in places from walking in the forest. He had this weightlifter kind of body that would have put Schwarzenegger to shame. He was attentive to his whole family, especially Mama, and did not seem to mind when the little ones ran around his legs. He really liked apples and bananas, and in particular, nuts. His face, as well as the face of all the others, was very human-like, with deep-set eyes spaced fairly far apart. But considering the width of the bridge of the nose, that would be expected. Dark-colored eyes with obvious sclera visible. The big guy had a beard with what could be called a mustache hair coming from just above the upper corner of his lips that hung down with his beard, which was at least 8 to 10 inches long. Their nose was fairly flat, but on the mother she had a bony point so as to give her more of an attitude, lol. The big guy was obviously the dominant one, though I never saw him treat his family unkind. But they all deferred to him with respect, and he had a few sounds that he made that indicated it was time to go, and they went just like that. The skin on their faces was sort of leathery, but soft looking, especially on the children and the two females. Their mouth was fairly straight across, but not all the way to the ears. Their mouth was straight across, but not all the way to the ears. There was a slight fullness to the bottom lip in particular, and more so on the two females, and straight, dingy white to yellow teeth. Their ears were not very big and laid close to the head and had no hair on the surface. There was also the, quote, old man, end quote, as I called him. He had dark to various shades of gray hair that had a shaggy look to it, and perhaps a silvery look to it down the middle of his back. And he seemed to have some areas of baldness, like the top of his head, parts of his upper arms and thighs. He did not mingle much, at least till we all became more friendly. He showed aging signs, such as a wrinkled face and hands, and I also noticed that he kind of limped when he walked, and he had missing teeth. The two kids were, and since I have no idea how they age, I guess age to height of human kids, so I guesstimated the kids to be about 6 and 8, and the older one to be about mid-teens or older. Now, I was 4 foot 11 inches tall in those days, and the littlest one was about midway to my shoulder, and the other one was about my height. The little ones were sort of a blondish/brown hair color, and they were both boys. They wrestled with each other and played together with the things natural to their environment. But they loved the ball I gave them, and I showed them how to play with it, and we sometimes played together. What? Then there was the two females. The mother I referred to was Mama, and companion to the big guy. It was almost 7 feet, I think, and she was large-breasted and had a soft, leathery face. Her reddish-brown hair was the longest of all of them, and it looked like she tried to keep it clean. Her face was not quite as flat as the others, and she had no hair on her face or her breasts and very little on her hands, and she was very friendly. Mama was very attentive to the two little ones, and I noticed she had fashioned a few toys made from sticks for them to play with, and they behaved better than some human kids I've known. I also enjoyed the relationship between Mama and the big guy. It was sweet. The teenage one I called Bubba was a proverbial awkward teen. He had the shortest hair and was dark brown, and he also was well built and muscled. And he also had the widest nose of all, and he was about 6 feet or so. Bubba seemed to hang with the other male. I figured he was the brother or friend to the big guy, and I called him Goofy. And he was nearly as tall as the big guy with the darkest hair of them all, and he was built like a linebacker. But he had longer legs than the rest. Excuse me. I called him Goofy because he kind of walked like the Disney character. He was also always on the lookout. If there was a noise in the forest, he would amble off to check it out. The other female I called Rose looked to be young, but not as young as a teen. For a Bigfoot, she was as pretty as a Bigfoot could be. She was about 5'5" and had notable breasts, and while built strongly, she was more feminine. She was always picking at her fingernails. Her hair was like a reddish/brown blonde, depending on the sunlight, and she was pretty quiet. Now, I will interject here and tell you that my dad had the prettiest whistle. There was this musical vibrato, and he frequently whistled when we walked in the forest or out shopping. This was sometimes how we found him. Some months into our residence, before the Bigfoot made themselves known to me, I heard Dad's whistle one evening coming from the forest, and Dad was watching TV in the living room, and I was like, what the F? It was also during this time that I found the structure along the river's edge and put 2 and 2 together. A few days later, after the dogs were making a fuss and charging the forest edge, and I saw them just behind the tree line, swaying and watching. I frequently referred to them as the Watchers because they watch us and learn. This went on for some weeks, and I finally just walked out towards the tree line and said, "Hello, I can see you, so stop hiding." They backed off and disappeared. But they were back the next night, and again I went out there and spoke to them. I said, I'm not going anywhere, so you might as well come out. And a few nights later, they came back, so I went out and sat on the tree stump and started singing and talking to them. They made some clicking sounds, and they chattered to each other. And that's when I realized some of the sounds I've been hearing was them communicating with each other. There was what I called the chipmunks chatter. Sounds sort of like a chattering of chipmunks. Then I also became aware of the other sound they made, which was the sounds you hear from bats called echolocation. This was very sophisticated, and I found it most fascinating. They also made this clicking sound, sort of like clicking or clucking your tongue. They were making this sound when I made it. They were making this sound when I made it, and there was total silence. I don't think they expected me to copy them. I know this is long, but I want to share something with you. At this time in my life, I had waist-length red hair. It was a hassle to dry, and I would sometimes sit outside on the stump near the back door and comb my hair in the sun to dry it. I noticed one late afternoon when I was home alone that the females seemed very interested in what I was doing, so I went into the house and found a denim bag I had made with a cross-your-chest strap, and I put 2 sturdy combs in it and a round mirror in a pink plastic frame, and I went out and showed it to them. Taking out one of the combs, I combed my hair, took out the mirror and looked into it to show them what to do. I remember this now. I walked closer to the tree line and noticed they did not back away, with Rose standing behind Mama. So I held out the bag in hopes Mama would come out to take it from me, and she did. I was like, holy cow. She took it from my hand. She stepped back some and took out a comb, and she copied me and combed her hair. I motioned her to give the other comb to Rose, and she did, and they both were excited like schoolgirls. I'd also put a bar of fragrance soap in the bag, but I don't think she knew what to do with it. Well, one more story. They all loved nuts. I returned after giving them a few here and there. My dad used to get this huge bushel basket of nuts. Lots of walnuts, Brazil nuts, and almonds, and I put some in a brown bag. I had drawn and colored a big red heart on the bag and left it for them on a tree stump. The next day they left me a bunch of rocks with a heart drawn in the dirt in front of the stump. They watched me look for and collect the rocks along the riverbed in the forest, so we gifted each other something we both liked. I frequently shared food with them and loved it. Loved it the time I gave them all popsicles on a hot summer day. They loved them, and it was fun to watch them eat it. Well, I could go on, but I better stop. I have other stories I can share. Just let me know if you want to hear them. As always, Steve, keep your no-nonsense approach to things. We got your 6. No worries about sharing name. Not concerned with the negative opinions of others. My husband and I listen to you as often as you release new stories. You're the best. Your friend Catherine, the midget queen. How crazy is that? I wonder if you're still here, and if you are, email me back. Let's have an update. How does this end? How did it end? And did you communicate, speak to them? And you know what, you guys, take from what you will or leave it. But at this stage of the game, anything is frickin' possible. And it's not the first time we've heard from someone who's been in contact with these beings. We got a guy in British Columbia, near Chilliwack, grew up in a rural place all by himself, played with his friend up the road, who was a hair-covered boy, his same size, couldn't talk. And the mom be standing over there watching him, not moving, and then whistled, and the kid would have to leave. Got that guy emailed. That I'm just remembering off the top of my head. We had, what else with that other family who said the old Sasquatch man was living in the basement or something. They fed him. It goes on and on. Right? And I wasn't there. I will not ever be able to say this is not fact. Didn't go down. And neither can you. You take from what you will or you leave it. You go with your gut, right? We'll see if we get an email back from her. Crazy. This next email is titled Fear. Fear and human beings go hand in hand, don't they? We've got to be the most scared species on the planet. if you know what I mean. Steve, fear. Our governments rely on it to keep us in a state of fear. Yes, they do. Steve, what would happen if every Sasquatch in North America used their mind speak and decided they don't want humans around anymore? I grew up in the woods and I hunted and fished from Canada to Illinois, PA, and New York, and New Jersey. Fear is our survival response. Some people roller coaster fans and horror movie buffs thrive on it, while other people avoid it. Have you ever wondered why? Fear is physical. Fear is experienced in your mind, but it triggers a strong physical reaction in your body. As soon as you recognize fear, your amygdala, amygdala, small organ in the middle of your brain goes to work. It alerts your nervous system, which sets your body fear response in motion. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are released. Your blood pressure and heart rate increase. You start breathing faster. Even your blood flow changes. Blood actually flows away from your heart and into your limbs, making it easier for you to start throwing punches or run for your life. Your body's preparing for fight or flight response. Fear can make you foggy, as some parts of your brain are revving up, others are shutting down. When the amygdala senses fear, the cerebral cortex, area of the brain that harnesses reasoning and judgment, becomes impaired. So now it's difficult to make good decisions or think clearly. And as a result, you might scream and throw your hands up when approached by an actor in a haunted house, unable to rationalize that the threat is not real. Fear can become pleasure. But why do people who love roller coasters, haunted houses, and horror movies enjoy getting caught up in those fearful, stressful moments? Because the thrill doesn't necessarily end when the ride or movie ends. Through the excitation transfer process, your body and brain remain aroused even after your scary experience is over. Quote, during a staged fear experience, your brain will produce more of a chemical called dopamine, which elicits pleasure, says Dr. Sikora. Fear is not phobia. If you're slightly uneasy about swimming in the ocean after watching Jaws, the movie did what it set out to do. But if you find yourself terrorized, traumatized, or unable to function at the mere thought of basking on the beach, you might be experiencing more than just fear. The difference between fear and phobia is simple. Fears are common reactions to events or objects, but a fear comes from a phobia when it interferes with your ability to function and maintain a consistent quality of life. If you start taking extreme measures to avoid water, spiders, or people, you may have a phobia. Fear keeps you safe. Fear is a natural and biological condition that we all experience, says Dr. Sikora. It is important that we experience fear because it keeps us safe. Fear is a complex human emotion that can be positive and healthy, but it can also have negative consequences. If a fear or phobia affects your life in a negative and inconvenient ways, speak to your primary care provider who can help determine the kind of treatment you might need. Well, in Canada, they just give you the suicide option. Joking, not joking. We know we can't count on hearing the truth from media outlets or governments. When you're in the club of no return, I know I don't want or need another experience like that to prove anything to anyone. And by the way, sorry, I thought I got ahead of myself there. I didn't. And by the way, great job, brother. I never had and I've never have and never will fear any man and will always speak the truth exactly how I feel. Right on, brother. Beautiful. As for people that get offended, I sympathize because their lives are ruled by fear. They allow it to make decisions for them. If you feel like sharing, go ahead. Keep it up. We need more like you. I don't want my fear to turn into a phobia. Like you say, baby steps. Go hunting with someone else or wait till daylight to go in, but don't let fear turn to phobia. Thanks, brother. Dennis Ippolito. P.S. Just info as my experience was over 30 years ago. But I'm out there every opening day. Right on. Good to hear. Awesome email, Lynn, and chunk of knowledge for all the people shared here through you. Appreciate you, man. Now, what about your experience? Wouldn't mind hearing about that one. Fear and the reactions to it, I can relate to that. It's odd how we're all built so differently, right? I remember my childhood best friend. We were going bear hunting. I knew where this huge bear was. He wanted to get it. He wasn't that experienced. I forgot the bolt to my truck. I left the truck, the bolt to my rifle at the time. I think I left it in the glove. I don't know where. I left it in my truck. Whatever. I didn't care. Off we went. And I knew where this big bear was going to be. Big. And we went there. And he was starting to lose his shit. I'm looking at him. He's right beside me. He starts breathing real heavy. I'm like, you're right, man. You got to calm down. Make this shot. Anyway, the first time we went to pull the trigger, his bolt was just up a little bit, which prevents the trigger from going through. And that made him jerk and jolt. Oh, my God. And really kicked him off into panic, fear. And I go, your bolt's up. Put your bolt down. Put your bolt down. Take your time. Calm down. Boom. I don't even know if he hit it. Missed, whatever. Either way, boom. Gun goes bang. Bear squares up with us and comes running straight at us, 100 miles per hour. He throws the gun in the air and starts running, screaming. I'm standing there with no rifle. And I shoot left, and it's a right-handed gun. Anyway, long story short, I picked up the gun. It was a bolt action. I'll bet you that thing sounded like a machine gun until it was empty, and I killed the bear. But anyway, I'm just saying, people react differently to fear, right? And then after that went down, then I got absolute dry mouth, and your knees just start wobbling. And you get dry mouth. Had that a handful of times over the years, and that's from the adrenaline. And then it turned to rage in a way. Not rage like out of control, but I remember thinking, I just wanted to punch him in the face. Like, you think your partner's good backup. That was early in my hunting career. And there were times I had another guy, we had a cat, cougar I was kicking snow at it. I know some of my stories sound a little far-fetched, but believe me, they are true. And, but when you do over 250 days a year in remote BC, shit's going to happen eventually. But anyways, I was kicking snow in this cougar's face when I was a teenager. I think I was 16 or 17. And it was like right there. There's a lot more story leading up to this moment. I'm kicking snow at it. That's how close I was to it. And this guy that was with me was frozen. Hands at his side, frozen. Not moving. I'm just saying there's another reaction to extreme fear, right? Some people just freeze up. I don't get it. They just freeze up. Oh. It's amazing, right? Then fear for me turns to anger. And it does to a lot of people too. You know when you scare somebody intentionally and they get pissed off? Damn it, why'd you do that to me? They instantly are kind of raging when you scare the shit out of them. Fear is interesting. Then there's other kinds of fear, like, maybe I should mention it, maybe I shouldn't. It's just a fact. Like my dad, he took his life just a little while ago. And he just isolated himself away from everybody and too scared to face life, too scared to talk about anything, too scared of everything. I guess that's probably mental health and a different kind of fear, right? But it's still fear in my eyes. Some people, spiders. Our mother was terrified of spiders, which she moved on to us, no doubt. I mean, spiders creep me out, but I don't get adrenaline and tremble and I'm not shitting myself. I'll go kill a spider when Sarah's freaking out. Look at that spider. That kind of creeped me out. Example, yesterday. Side note, I'm sitting right here, working away. And I was just outside moving some lumber and I have a wood pile out back, and then I felt something crawling up here. Just like, it's going like this. I'm working right here, just like this, on my laptop, and I'm going like that. And then I'm still typing away on the computer. And a few minutes later, then I feel something over here. Right here on my neck. And I went, damn it, like that. I look down. Thunk. This big frickin' spider hits the desk right here. I'm like, Jesus. And I grab this external drive and I'm hammered on him. Well, it was a creepy looking spider too. All of his front legs came around like a crab, and he was about that big on the side. He was crawling around my head. Obviously came out of the wood pile. Yeah, it creeps the shit out of me. But it does make me scared and want to run, One more quick note. I had a friend of mine years back in Vancouver Brown, Dude is like bricklayer, 6'2", big dude, shredded, kick-ass dude. And if a bird, like we were at some friend's place, they had budgies in the house, and the budgies flying through the house, and he's screaming, panicking, freaking out from a little bird flying in the room. I guess that's probably got a name to it too, right? But another flavor of fear. Phobia? Anyway, enough of me babbling. Who else? Excuse me. Fear sucks. Today, society is ruled by fear. There's no arguing that one. It makes me angry. I wish I could turn it around. Man, do I ever wish I could turn that around. Here's another one. Mark this as red. Excuse me. Encounter on Vancouver Island, near Kamloops, and near Boston Bar. Wow. Here we go. Hi, my name is... I would rather you not share my name, okay? Because I don't like having it out there, especially on such a high-volume platform. But I have had a few encounters that I was not even sure were encounters until watching more of your videos. Alright. The first one was only a year ago. My brothers and I were hunting mule deer near Kamloops, British Columbia. It was not even a super remote area or anything, but my brothers wanted to drive to a new spot and hike in. And I wanted to hike a different direction, so we split up for our evening hunts. I hike a ways in directly from our camp spot, and after getting up to the top of the ridge, we got hit with a super heavy fog. Ooh, that sucks. Fog is nasty in the timber. I don't care where you are. I sat and tried to wait it out for a bit, but as the sun started to go down, I was losing visibility fast. And I left my GPS at camp because I figured my trail tape was enough to find my way back to camp as it got dark. I realized I had spaced my trail tape a bit too far apart, so it was hard to see. And as I began to make my way back, struggling to find each marking I had left, I heard a weird noise that I can't even describe. No punctuation. It sounded like it should have been loud and from a distance, but it felt like it was right beside me and quieter than it should be. I can't even explain it in words, as I feel like my sad attempt at describing it doesn't do it justice. At no time did I ever think it could be one of the beings. I just didn't know what the hell it was, and knew I had to be careful. As I made my way back, walking a few steps and doing a 360 with my flashlight to my rifle, I began to feel absolutely terrified, like I was about to be snatched up in the pitch black fog. I made it back to camp and began to start a fire, thinking that it would scare whatever I thought was stalking me away. But as soon as I got my fire going, I heard the noise again, followed by bushes moving on the opposite side the sound came from. And immediately the absolute terror came back. I spent a lot of time in the bush by myself. I've never felt scared or like I was in danger until this moment. I was so scared that with bear spray and my rifle, I climbed into my truck and sat there until my brothers returned. When they got back and laughed that I was hiding, we joked and I convinced myself there was nothing but an anxiety attack or something. And the fear or noise never returned for the rest of the hunting trip. But I also stayed with them for the rest of the trip. Honestly, this experience was pushed to the back of my head afterwards because we shot the shit and I had convinced myself that it was nothing. Second encounter was on Vancouver Island near Campbell River. It was the same situation. Me and my two brothers were hunting for black-tailed deer. My brother got one. Following day, I got one. And on our last day, me and my brother, who got a buck, stayed back at camp to quarter our deer and get them ready for the coolers, while my unsuccessful brother went back out to hunt while we quartered and broke down camp. While we were working away, laughing about how our other brother didn't get a buck, we heard exactly what has been described time and time again on your channel. The sound of one giant piece of wood being smashed into another. We've been around logging. It was not any sound that could have been justified by that. There were gravel. There were gravel blasts going on a few days prior, and it was no sound related to that either. Oh, I guess blasting for the logging roads. We joked that it was a Sasquatch at first, but then the noise continued a few more times. We both genuinely felt uncomfortable. It was very strange. We finished quartering our deer and broke down camp when my third brother returned, and we told him what happened. And he laughed at us, saying that I had scared our youngest brother now because of what happened last year when we were hunting near Kamloops. Again, we told ourselves it was nothing and got ready to head home. And just before we left, the sound happened again, and my third brother also couldn't explain what the hell it could be. We all said it was nothing, but I knew myself there was no way that this could have been a man-made or natural sound that we heard. I went home and again just put it in the back of my mind until I started watching more of your channel. I realized this wasn't just a one-off weird experience, that the fear wasn't just anxiety, and that I truly believe now that my experience was an encounter with one of those beings. No doubt, my last encounter was only last weekend. I brought my dog up to go for a nice hike and to try to find a pair of sheds from a buck I watched all spring. I tried to hunt in the fall, and whose last year's sheds I found when hunting in the fall. I went up to where I'd found them last year and were watching him this winter. Watched him this winter. I've hiked this spot several times and never felt anything strange. The snow last weekend was quite deep, maybe 2 feet, so it was slow moving. After about an hour of hiking, I realized the snow was too deep to keep going, so me and my dog returned around to head back to the truck, when all of a sudden my dog started frantically digging in the snow and sniffing like she was on the trail of something. And that's when the same terror returned, as if I was being watched. But from every angle, above, below, behind, beside, it felt like I was being surrounded. But we were alone, and there's nothing in sight. No tracks in the snow, nothing. It was daylight, and I knew the exact way back to my truck, so I hiked back, got in my truck, and as I began to head back, the feeling just went away as fast as it had come on. Almost as if whatever was causing that fear immediately stopped when I began to head back towards my truck. We drove down the Forest Service Road to a lower bridge and hiked that for the rest of the day to a lower ridge. And hiked that for the rest of the day with no problems, but this time I knew what that feeling was. This year, near the same spot I had my first encounter, one of my brothers and I went hunting for mule deer, and the first night we hiked up to the top of a ridge and split up. Maybe 20 minutes after splitting up, snow and freezing rain with some heavy winds came in. I thought it would pass, so I kept going. He was a bit smarter and turned back. The freezing rain turned to only snow, and the wind and snow, our visibility was basically none. I turned to head back to our meeting spot when I realized he was nowhere near and should have only been a few hundred yards from me. I whistled, hoping that he would hear and whistle back. He did hear, and he called to me, which made me realize I was walking in the complete wrong direction of our meeting spot. We met up and began to hike back down the ridge to my truck in the dark, cold snowstorm. When we got back to my truck, we decided to drive back into Cache Creek and get a hotel for the night instead of setting up camp in the dark storm. When we got to our hotel at the Bear Claw Lodge, I think it was called, my brother told me that he'd heard a weird noise that he convinced himself must have been a cougar, and how he was terrified and sheltered near our meet spot and waited for me to return. He said he thought he was being stalked. And if I wasn't up on that ridge somewhere in the storm, he would have beelined it back to the truck. But he knew I was up there and would be searching for him if he wasn't in our meet spot, so he waited in fear with no visibility, hoping I would return sooner than later. He still thinks it just must have been a cat he heard, but I know it was a being, the way he described it, and the similarity to my encounter just a few kilometers away the year before. I knew it was a being, the way he explained his fear and how it came over him so unexplainably. And the way that the sound he described is nothing like a cougar. I knew it was a being. He's still in denial because I think it helps him deal with it, but I know it wasn't a cougar. We will all continue to hunt every year and enjoy the outdoors and are actually looking at going in on a property in northern BC, so let's hope the property we buy isn't filled with these things because I hate to experience that strange wave of fear in my own land in what is supposed to be our family hunting spot. Anyways, I've gone on enough. I don't care if you read this or not. It just feels good to be able to express this to a community that has shared similar experiences. Keep doing what you're doing. Fellow conservationists in beautiful BC. And I hope you get some wolves this season. I plan on going up on a wolf hunt near Red Lake this month. And your app and videos are going to help with that. Right on. Sorry it took me a while to get that email, my man. But I got it. So I know where you were roughly. Fairly common hunting area where you were. I guarantee I know where you were. Not the exact spot, but I know where you were. And if you're still listening, or any but of you other hunters out there that are listening, you probably know where he was too if you hunt around there. The majority of guys that stay in Cache Creek hunt to the north, directly north of town. Anyway, I already mentioned this a bunch of times when I was with Dr. John Bendernagel at University of Victoria, and that man came up who had the face-to-face, and him and his buddy almost controlled it with the rifle scopes. Remember? Peeking up in the tree, hiding behind the tree, peeking out. That was very near where these guys were. Our native friend who lives in a shoe swap now, I think, who emailed us a few years ago, was sitting on his broken-down machine, Feller Buncher, logging, up in the hills west of Spence's Bridge. That's just over the hill from where these guys were. That way. So these guys were this way hunting, stayed here, and that was just over this hill. That's where that went down. And we also have some friends here that shipped to me before they left the country bones. The exact same bone. I got to do some of those suckers because they lived not too far away from there. They lived there. And they had these hairy people were in their garden, pulling out carrots, footprints, looking in the window of the little cabin, see him in the lake. One up above the lake waved at his wife. And they also would leave, when he was spring bear hunting on this particular trail, they would leave the exact same bone from what he said was a bear carcass. I haven't even had a chance to look into it myself. And they left him a bone, specific bone from a bear on a rock, the exact same rock every spring when he was bear hunting. And he shipped those to me with a bunch of maps as well. I think his dad had a British Columbia from back in the day. But one of those bones was huge compared to the other ones. I think there's 5 or 6 of them. And it's always bothered me knowing what the hell that great big bone came from. If anything, it would have to be a grizzly bear. Or, right, some extinct bear? Who knows? I don't know. But anyways, all those episodes were going on close to where these guys just had their experiences. While mule deer hunting. What else around there? Lots. The whole province, right? But anyway, there you go. I don't know if I'm cutting it short or not. I probably am, but I got to get going. And we had I'm done with the emails in case my voice really angers you when I'm not reading emails, which it does a lot. Whatever. But I'm sitting here with all my friends having coffee, right? And a couple years ago, I went at putting fir boards around the shop here, taking the metal off, and I got this wood stain. I didn't know I shouldn't have got the stain. And a couple years later, it was the same buckets of stain, but half the shop is deteriorating and changing to some weird green color. The other half is somewhat the same color we stained it. It's just a full-on stain mishap. Such a piss off. There's so much money in the wood I bought and all that work. Urgh. Anyway, I finally come up with a plan of what to do to deal with it. And salvage all the wood, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to take 6 lifetimes to sand this wood and take it off. I bought a thickness pointer, and yesterday was the first trial, a few $100 from Home Depot, and I took one section of the wood off of the outside of the shop, took it all off, made sure I went and picked some of the screw heads were broken off. Anyways, I got all the wood off, got all the metal out, and then set the planer up in my toolbox in the entrance of the shop and fed the planks through. Thank you, baby Jesus. They came out perfectly smooth, like they were sanded. I took almost an eighth off. Perfect brand new boards. Yes! Sarah got the right stain, and we stained it up, and I started to put them on the outside of the shop. Hell, I might even share the pictures with you guys so you see what I'm talking about. But now it's a whole nother, cracked open a whole nother project that's got to be done. So I really got to get going on that, because I just got to get it going. It's dry out. That's one thing I got to do. And as well, I've got to get a lot more done for this place here. But I'm getting there. So what I'm saying, I'm babbling. My second coffee's kicking in. But that's what I'm doing. And I have to get back in the water. And I really have to get 3 people on here with me. But they understand that I'm a little scattered right now, but it's coming. Who knows, maybe tonight. I'm going to email maybe tonight. That'll mean I'll be able to share it tomorrow. We'll see. Here I go. I can't get nothing done if I'm sitting here babbling like an idiot, right? I got a shit pile of emails I found. I got emails always, anyway. But I got to get going. I'm getting texts from Sarah right now. I better rip. Share my story at howtohunt.com. Just get it out there. All right? And please stop being scared. Please, please lose the fear. We're all dying. Don't be scared of nobody or anything. And tell the truth. Look at the size of that frickin' fish.
Wow. That's amazing.
He's well over 30.
Yeah!
Triple with a 30.